In the vast darkness of space, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists a truth that the galaxy's most powerful empires refuse to acknowledge. Never corner a human who has nothing left to lose. The Corvani hegemony learned this lesson at the cost of 500 of their most advanced battlecruisers. What they thought was a simple extermination mission against a lone human survivor became the catalyst that would reshape the balance of power across 7 star systems. This is the story of Marcus Chen, a man who lost everything in a war he never wanted to fight, and how his quest for justice became the stuff of legends whispered in the darkest corners of alien space stations. It's the story of how one human, armed with nothing but his will to survive and secrets buried deep in his past, reminded the galaxy why humanity's greatest strength has always been its refusal to surrender. The aliens called it impossible. The military strategists called it suicide. History would call it the moment everything changed. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the universe isn't a fleet of battleships or a planet-killing laser. Sometimes it's just one human who refuses to die quietly. The mining station, Vesta. 7 hung in the void like a dying star, its hull scarred by laser burns and punctured by railgun rounds. Emergency lights flickered through the observation deck where Marcus Chen stood, watching the Corvani fleet assemble in the distance. 500 battlecruisers, each one larger than Earth's old moon, their crimson hulls gleaming with the promise of death. Marcus pressed his palm against the cold metal of the bulkhead, feeling the vibrations of the station's failing life support systems. Behind him, the last 3 survivors of the mining operation huddled around a makeshift communications array, their faces pale with terror. "They're not responding to our surrender signals," whispered Elena Vasquez, the station's former communications officer. Her voice cracked as she spoke, barely audible over the constant hum of dying machinery. They're just waiting." Marcus didn't turn around. His eyes remained fixed on the alien armada, calculating distances and trajectories with the kind of cold precision that most people had forgotten he possessed. To his fellow survivors, he was just Marcus Chen, a quiet maintenance worker who had kept the station's fusion reactors running for the past 3 years. They knew nothing about his past, nothing about why he had chosen to disappear into the Outer Rim territories after the war ended. "How long until they reach optimal firing range?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the circumstances. James Okafor, the station's chief geologist, checked his tablet with shaking hands. 18 minutes, maybe 20. Their formation suggests they're planning a synchronized bombardment. They want to make sure nothing survives. The 4th survivor, Tommy Rodriguez, barely 18 years old and on his first deep space assignment, started crying. The sound echoed through the observation deck like a funeral dirge. "We're all going to die here. We're going to die, and nobody will even know what happened to us." Marcus finally turned around, and for just a moment, something flickered behind his dark eyes. Something that transformed the face of a simple maintenance worker into something else entirely. The 3 survivors saw it, and suddenly they understood that there was more to their quiet colleague than they had ever imagined. "Elena," Marcus said, walking over to the communications console, "I need you to send a message on all frequencies. Tell them this is Marcus Chen, requesting to speak with Fleet Commander Zektar." Elena blinked in confusion. "Marcus, that's a Corvani name? How do you know who's commanding their fleet?" "Because I know who would want me dead badly enough to send 500 battlecruisers after a mining station with 4 people on it." Marcus sat down at the console, his fingers dancing across the controls with the practiced ease of someone who had operated military equipment before. "Trust me on this one." The message went out across all communication channels, carried by subspace transmitters toward the approaching fleet. For several minutes there was only silence, broken occasionally by the groaning of the station's damaged hull as it struggled to maintain structural integrity. Then the reply came, transmitted directly to Marcus's personal communicator, in a voice that carried the weight of old hatred and burning desire for revenge. Marcus Chen. The alien voice was like gravel being crushed under steel boots, each syllable dripping with venom. I have searched for you across 17 star systems for 12 standard years. I was beginning to think you had died of old age in some forgotten corner of space, Marcus smiled. But it was the kind of smile that would have made a predator think twice about attacking. Hello, Zektar. Still angry about what happened at Kepler. 442, you humiliated the Third Fleet in front of the entire hegemony. You turned what should have been our greatest victory into our most shameful defeat. I stopped you from committing genocide against a civilian population. If that hurt your feelings, I'm not sorry. The communication channel crackled with static as Zektar's rage transmitted across space. Your heroics cost me everything, human. My rank, my honor, my family's standing in the hegemony. I have spent more than a decade rebuilding my career, waiting for the chance to face you again. Dr. Okafor leaned closer to Marcus, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus, what is he talking about? What happened at Kepler 442? Marcus ignored the question, keeping his attention focused on the alien fleet commander. So you tracked me down to a mining station in the middle of nowhere and you brought 500 battlecruisers to kill 4 people. That seems like overkill, even for you. I brought them to kill 1 person, Zektar replied. The other 3 are merely unfortunate witnesses to history. You see, Marcus Chen, I have learned much about your species since our last encounter. I know about human psychology, about your need to protect others, about your inability to abandon those under your care. I could have killed you quietly with a single assassin, but where would be the satisfaction in that? The alien commander paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. No, I wanted you to watch as I destroy everything around you. I wanted you to feel helpless, the way I felt when you outmaneuvered my fleet at Kepler 442. I wanted you to experience the same humiliation, the same crushing defeat that you inflicted upon me. G, NTD, Fairs, Elena, Tommy, and Dr. Okafor stared at Marcus with growing understanding and horror. The man they had worked alongside for 3 years, the quiet maintenance worker who had fixed their broken equipment and shared meals with them in the station's small cafeteria, was someone else entirely, someone important enough to draw the attention of an entire alien fleet. Marcus stood up from the communications console and walked back to the observation deck, watching as the Corvani battlecruisers began to adjust their formation for the final approach. You always were too fond of dramatic gestures, Zektar. It's going to be your downfall again. Brave words from a man trapped on a defenseless mining station. Tell me, Marcus Chen, where are your reinforcements? Where is the mighty human fleet that will come to save you? I don't need a fleet, Marcus said quietly, so quietly that his 3 companions had to strain to hear him. I never did. He turned away from the window and walked toward the station's maintenance section, leaving the others staring after him in confusion and growing hope. There was something in his posture, in the way he moved, that suggested he had a plan, something that went beyond surrender or last-minute rescue. Elena, Marcus called back over his shoulder, I need you to establish a secure channel to the station's automated defense systems. Password is Alpha 77 Delta Echo. Dr. Okafor, I need you to access the geological surveys for this entire system, particularly anything relating to the asteroid field in Sector 12. Tommy, you're going to help me with something in the engineering section. Marcus, Elena called after him. Those defense systems were disabled 3 years ago when the station was converted to civilian use. There's nothing here but mining equipment and life support. Marcus paused at the entrance to the corridor, and when he looked back at them, his smile was the smile of someone who had been waiting 12 years for exactly this moment. Elena, he said, what did you think I was doing for 3 years when I told everyone I was just maintaining the fusion reactors? The implications of his words hit them like a physical blow. For 3 years, while they had gone about their daily routines, thinking they were safe in the Outer Rim territories, Marcus Chen had been preparing, waiting, planning for the day when his past would catch up with him as he disappeared into the station's maintenance section, followed by a confused and frightened Tommy Rodriguez. Elena and Dr. Okafor were left alone on the observation deck, watching the Corvani fleet continue its inexorable approach. "Who is he, Dr. E?" Okafor whispered. "Who is Marcus Chen?" Elena was already working at the communications console, accessing files that had been sealed for over a decade. What she found in the military archives made her hands tremble as she read. "He was a tactical officer in the Human Defense Force," she said, her voice filled with awe and terror. "Not just any tactical officer. He was the ghost of Kepler 442, the man who single-handedly destroyed an entire Corvani invasion fleet with nothing but a disabled cruiser and a bunch of mining charges." The stories were all there in the classified files, marked with the highest security clearances and buried so deep that only someone with Elena's communication skills and security access could have found them. Marcus Chen, the tactical genius who had turned humanity's greatest defeat into its most legendary victory. The man who had outmaneuvered, outfought an enemy fleet 50 times the size of his own forces. The man who had disappeared without explanation at the end of the war, vanishing into the outer rim like a ghost returning to the shadows. "He's been hiding," Dr. Okafor said, understanding dawning in his voice. "All these years he's been hiding from them. But now they found him." Elena nodded, but as she continued reading the files, a smile began to spread across her face. A smile that would have made Zektar reconsider his entire plan if he had been there to see it. "They found him," she agreed, "but I don't think they have any idea what they've actually cornered." In the distance, the Corvani fleet continued its approach, 500 battlecruisers carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. But somewhere in the maintenance section of a dying mining station, Marcus Chen was finally letting himself become who he really was again. And for the first time in 12 years, he was smiling. The maintenance section of Vesta 7 had always been off-limits to everyone except Marcus, and now Tommy Rodriguez understood why. What he had expected to find was a typical engineering space filled with spare parts and repair equipment. What he actually discovered made his breath catch in his throat. The entire section had been converted into something resembling a military command center. Banks of monitors lined the walls, displaying real-time tactical information about the approaching Corvani fleet. Advanced sensor arrays, disguised as routine maintenance equipment, provided detailed scans of every ship in Zektar's armada. Most shocking of all were the weapons systems, hidden behind false walls and integrated so seamlessly into the station's infrastructure that they appeared to be nothing more than standard mining equipment. "Holy hell, Marcus," Tommy whispered, staring at a display that showed the precise location, heading, and tactical capabilities of all 500 enemy battlecruisers. "How long have you been planning this?" Marcus moved through the command center with the fluid efficiency of someone returning home after a long absence. His hands flew across control panels, activating systems that had been dormant for years, bringing online equipment that the Corvani fleet would never see coming. 12 years, 3 months, and 16 days, Marcus replied without looking up from his work. "Ever since I realized that Zektar wouldn't let the Kepler 2 incident go, I knew he would come for me eventually, so I prepared. But this is incredible. These are military-grade systems. How did you get them out here without anyone noticing?" Marcus smiled grimly as he activated another hidden weapons array. "Tommy, do you know what the most valuable cargo in the galaxy is? It's not gold or rare minerals or even information. It's the one thing that every civilization needs but nobody wants to talk about." Tommy frowned, trying to follow Marcus's logic. "What?" "Garbage," Marcus said. "Nobody inspects garbage shipments very carefully. Nobody asks questions when a waste disposal company needs to transport sealed containers to remote locations for processing. For 3 years, every supply ship that visited this station also carried away our processed waste materials. The implications hit Tommy like a physical blow. You've been building weapons and shipping them out as garbage? To where? Everywhere, Marcus said, and his smile was the smile of someone who had been playing a very long game. Every major shipping lane, every strategic choke point, every place where someone might want to stop a human vessel and search it for contraband. Do you know how many garbage scows cross Corvani space every day, Tommy? Before Tommy could answer, Elena's voice crackled through the communication system. Marcus, you need to see this. The Corvani fleet is splitting up. Marcus activated a holographic display in the center of the command center, showing the tactical situation in 3 dimensions. The massive alien fleet, which had been approaching in a standard bombardment formation, was now breaking apart into smaller groups. Interesting, Marcus murmured, studying the new formation with the eyes of someone who had spent years learning to read enemy movements. Zektar is being careful. He's not taking any chances this time. Tommy stared at the display, trying to understand what he was seeing. What does it mean? It means he remembers Kepler 442 better than I thought he would. He's dividing his fleet so that I can't use their own numbers against them. Smart, but not smart enough. Marcus's fingers danced across the control panel, and suddenly the holographic display expanded to show not just the immediate area around Vesta 7, but the entire star system. What Tommy saw made his knees go weak. The system was full of hidden assets. Automated weapons platforms disguised as space debris. Mining charges placed strategically throughout the asteroid field. Sensor networks that had been tracking every ship movement in the area for years. Most incredibly of all, there were other humans out there, scattered across dozens of different locations, all waiting for Marcus's signal. You've been building an army, Tommy said, his voice filled with awe. I've been building a network, Marcus corrected. Every human who wanted to disappear from the core worlds, everyone who had reasons to avoid attention from the major powers, everyone who just wanted to be left alone. They all ended up out here, in the Outer Rim territories, and eventually they all ended up working with me. Marcus activated another system, and suddenly the command center was filled with voices. Dozens of humans, scattered across the star system, checking in and confirming their readiness for battle. Ghost Leader, this is Wraith 1. Asteroid mining platform Delta 7 is online and ready. We've got 16 modified mining ships loaded with enhanced fusion charges. Ghost Leader, this is Spectre 3. Salvage operation in Sector 9 is standing by. We've got 7 modified freighters with military-grade shields and some very interesting cargo. Ghost Leader, this is Phantom 2. Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha 33 is active. We've been tracking Corvani fleet movements for the past 6 hours. They don't know we exist. One by one, Marcus's hidden network reported in. Miners, salvage operators, freight haulers, research teams, and maintenance crews, all of them humans who had found their way to the Outer Rim territories for various reasons, and all of them willing to fight when the time came. Tommy stared at the communications board in amazement. There are dozens of them. How many people are part of this network? About 300. Across the Outer Rim territories? Thousands. Marcus paused in his preparations to look directly at Tommy. Did you really think I was the only human who wanted to avoid the attention of the major galactic powers? Did you think I was the only one who had reasons to disappear? Before Tommy could respond, Dr. Okafor's voice echoed through the command center. Marcus, Elena found something in the geological surveys. You need to hear this. Marcus activated the intercom. Go ahead, Doctor. The asteroid field in Sector 12, the one you asked about. It's not just any asteroid field. It's the remains of a planetary system that was destroyed in an ancient war, millions of years ago. The debris field is incredibly dense, and the mineral composition is highly unusual. How unusual? The asteroids contain massive concentrations of chronon particles. If you could somehow destabilize the field, the resulting temporal distortions would be visible from halfway across the galaxy. Marcus went very still, and Tommy could see the gears turning in his mind. Doctor, How much chronon material are we talking about? Enough to power the time dilation drives for every ship in the human fleet for a century. The field is essentially a temporal minefield waiting to be activated. Marcus closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked like a man carrying the weight of the entire galaxy on his shoulders. When he opened them again, his expression was that of someone who had just made a decision that would change everything. "Elena," he said into the intercom, "I need you to send another message to Zektar. Tell him I want to negotiate." "Marcus, what are you planning?" Elena's voice was tight with concern. "I'm going to give him exactly what he wants," Marcus replied. "A chance to face me in single combat, with the whole galaxy watching." Tommy stared at him in horror. "Marcus, you can't seriously be thinking about fighting 500 battlecruisers with just this mining station." Marcus looked at him with the kind of smile that had once made an entire alien fleet retreat in terror. "Tommy, I'm not going to fight them with this mining station. This station is just the bait." He turned back to the control panel, activating systems that had been hidden for years, bringing online weapons and defenses that would have made a military strategist weep with envy. But more importantly, he was activating the network he had spent 12 years building, calling in favors and debts from every corner of the Outer Rim territories. "You see," Marcus continued as he worked, "Zektar made one critical mistake when he decided to hunt me down. He assumed that I would be alone, isolated, cut off from any support. He never considered the possibility that I might have spent the last 12 years making friends." The tactical display updated again, showing new contacts appearing throughout the system. What had seemed like an empty star system just minutes before was now revealed to be full of human assets, all of them moving into position for what was about to become the largest space battle in the Outer Rim territories since the end of the war. "Zektar wanted revenge," Marcus said, his voice carrying the cold certainty of someone who had planned for every contingency. "He wanted to humiliate me the way he felt I had humiliated him." "Well, he's about to get his wish. The whole galaxy is going to be watching when this is over." Tommy looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching Corvani fleet and the hidden human assets moving to intercept them. The numbers still seemed impossible. Even with all of Marcus's preparations, even with the hidden weapons and the support of the Outer Rim network, they were still outnumbered by more than 50 to 1. "Marcus," he said quietly, "do you really think we can win?" Somewhere out there, 500 alien battlecruisers were closing in on what they thought was a helpless mining station. Somewhere out there, Fleet Commander Zektar was finally getting his chance for revenge against the man who had destroyed his career 12 years ago. "Tommy," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of years of planning and preparation, "I've been ready for this fight since the day I arrived on this station. The only question now is whether Zektar is ready for what's coming." Outside, the first of the Corvani scout ships was entering the outer perimeter of the star system, their sensors scanning for threats and finding nothing but empty space and a dying mining station. They had no idea that they were flying into the most carefully prepared trap in the history of interstellar warfare. The hidden champion was finally ready to reveal himself, and the galaxy would never be the same. Fleet Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vengeance of Korvac, watching the tactical displays with the satisfaction of a predator finally cornering its prey. His massive form, easily 3 meters tall and covered in the chitinous armor that was the mark of his species, radiated confidence as he studied the approaching mining station. "Fleet status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had clawed his way back to power through 12 years of careful political maneuvering and tactical brilliance. His tactical officer, a younger Corvani named Vextar, consulted his instruments with the nervous efficiency of someone who knew that failure meant death. "Why do you care for the past 2 days? The human mining station shows no signs of defensive capabilities. Their distress beacon indicates total system failure and life support operating at minimal capacity." Zektar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. "Excellent. And our sensor sweeps of the surrounding space?" "Empty, sir. No sign of human reinforcements or hidden assets. The system appears to be as barren as our intelligence indicated. Perfect. Zektar moved to the primary communication console, his clawed hands dancing over the controls with practiced ease. Open a channel to the mining station. It's time to end this. The view screen flickered to life, showing the face of Marcus Chen standing in what appeared to be a makeshift command center. The human looked older than Zektar remembered, with gray streaking his dark hair and lines of weariness etched around his eyes. But there was something else there, too. Something that made Zektar pause, despite himself. The human didn't look defeated. He didn't look afraid. If anything, he looked ready. Marcus Chen, Zektar said, letting his voice carry all the hatred and anticipation he had nursed for 12 long years. You look well for a man about to die. Marcus nodded calmly, as if he were greeting an old friend rather than facing execution by overwhelming force. Hello, Zektar. I see you've been busy. 500 battlecruisers is quite an impressive fleet. Your superiors must really trust you. They trust me to finish what should have been finished at Kepler. 442, Zektar replied. They trust me to eliminate the last remnant of human defiance in this sector. Is that what they think this is about? Human defiance? Zektar's secondary eyes narrowed as he studied the human's face. Something was wrong. Marcus Chen should be terrified, should be begging for mercy, or trying to negotiate for the lives of his companions. Instead, he seemed almost amused. You cost me everything, Zektar continued, trying to regain control of the conversation. My rank, my honor, my family's position in the hegemony. Do you have any idea what it's been like living with that shame for 12 years? I imagine it's been difficult, Marcus replied with genuine sympathy. But you have to understand, Zektar, I wasn't trying to humiliate you at Kepler. 442, I was trying to save 70,000 civilian lives. Civilian lives that meant nothing in the greater scheme of the war. They meant everything to me. Marcus's voice hardened slightly, and for just a moment, Zektar caught a glimpse of the tactical genius who had outmaneuvered the entire Third Fleet. Every single life mattered, and I would do it again, given the chance. Zektar's rage flared, but he forced himself to remain calm. This was his moment, his chance for perfect revenge. He wouldn't let the human's words distract him from his purpose. It doesn't matter now, he said. You're alone, trapped on a defenseless mining station with nowhere to run. Your heroic gestures mean nothing here. Marcus smiled, and the expression sent an unexpected chill down Zektar's spine. Zektar, I've been thinking about our conversation at Kepler, 442, right before the battle began. Do you remember what you said to me? Despite himself, Zektar found himself remembering that long-ago confrontation. I told you that humans were too weak and divided to stand against the might of the Corvani hegemony. That's right. And do you remember what I said in response? Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously. He did remember, and the memory made him uneasy. You said that humans were at their most dangerous when they were cornered and had nothing left to lose. Exactly. Marcus's smile widened. And now here we are, 12 years later, with you thinking you've cornered me on a defenseless mining station. Tell me, Zektar, what makes you think the situation has changed? Before Zektar could respond, his tactical officer suddenly looked up from his instruments, his face pale with alarm. Fleet Commander, we're detecting massive energy spikes throughout the system, multiple contacts appearing on our sensors. What? Zektar spun away from the communication console, his attention snapping to the tactical displays. What he saw there made his blood run cold. The empty space around them was no longer empty. Dozens of human vessels were decloaking throughout the system, appearing from behind asteroids and emerging from sensor shadows with the coordinated precision of a military operation. But these weren't military ships. They were mining vessels, salvage haulers, freight runners, and research platforms, all of them modified in ways that made Zektar's tactical experience scream warnings. How many? He demanded. 67 vessels detected so far, sir, but the numbers are still climbing. They're using some kind of advanced cloaking technology that our sensors can't fully penetrate. Zektar's mind raced as he studied the tactical situation. The human vessels were positioning themselves in a complex formation that seemed to make no tactical sense, spread too thinly to concentrate their firepower and too randomly distributed to provide mutual support. It was almost as if they were trying to fail. "Open fire," he commanded. "All ships target the largest human vessels first. Destroy them before they can coordinate their attack." The Corvani fleet opened fire with the coordinated precision of a military force that had trained together for years. 500 battlecruisers unleashed their weapons simultaneously, filling space with enough destructive energy to vaporize a moon. But something impossible happened. The human vessels, outnumbered and outgunned, didn't die. Instead, they began to dance. The mining ships moved with impossible grace, weaving between incoming fire with the fluid precision of ships designed for delicate work in dangerous environments. The salvage haulers deployed defense screens that shouldn't have been possible on civilian vessels, absorbing energy blasts that should have destroyed them instantly. The freight runners launched clouds of chaff and countermeasures that confused Corvani targeting systems, making it impossible to lock on to individual targets. "What is happening?" Zektar roared at his tactical officer. "Why aren't they dying?" "Sir, these aren't ordinary civilian vessels. They've been extensively modified with military-grade equipment. And they're not fighting like civilians either. Their tactical coordination is—" The officer paused, his voice filled with disbelief. "Trust Teddy." "Sir, they're fighting like they've trained together for years." On the view screen, Marcus Chen continued to smile with the confidence of someone watching a carefully orchestrated plan unfold exactly as intended. "You see, Zektar," he said calmly, as if the battle raging around them was nothing more than an interesting theoretical discussion, "you made the same mistake at Kepler, 442 that you're making now. You assumed that being outnumbered meant being outmatched. This is impossible," Zektar snarled. "These are civilian vessels, mining equipment, and cargo haulers." "Yes, they are," Marcus agreed. "And do you know what mining equipment is designed to do? It's designed to break things apart. Asteroid mining charges, plasma cutters, gravity manipulation systems, industrial-grade tractor beams, all perfectly lethal equipment that just happens to be very effective in combat situations." As if to emphasize his point, one of the human mining vessels released a spread of what looked like ordinary asteroid breaker charges. When they detonated among a group of Corvani battlecruisers, the explosions were anything but ordinary. The enhanced fusion charges tore through alien armor like paper, sending 3 of Zektar's ships spinning into the void. And freight haulers, Marcus continued conversationally, are designed to carry cargo. Large amounts of cargo, like spare parts for ship repairs or extra ammunition, or even complete weapons systems that can be deployed when needed. Several human freight runners suddenly opened their cargo bays, disgorging swarms of automated defense drones that immediately began coordinating with the larger vessels. The drones were small and fast, designed for routine maintenance work, but in large numbers they proved capable of overwhelming Corvani point defense systems. "This is still just a delaying action," Zektar said, but his voice lacked the confidence it had carried just minutes before. "You're outnumbered 7-1. No matter how clever your modifications, no matter how well trained your people, you cannot win a straight fight against the Corvani fleet." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right. In a straight fight, we wouldn't stand a chance. But then again, I've never been much good at straight fights." He gestured towards something off-screen, and suddenly the tactical displays on the Corvani flagship began showing something that made Zektar's mind reel with disbelief. The asteroid field in Sector 12 was moving, not drifting, not shifting under gravitational influences, but moving with purpose and direction. Thousands of asteroids, some of them larger than battlecruisers, were accelerating toward the battle zone with the coordinated precision of a military formation. "That's impossible," Zektar whispered. "Asteroids don't move like that." "No," Marcus agreed. "They don't. But mining platforms do. And if you spend 3 years carefully positioning mining platforms throughout an asteroid field, and if you modify those platforms with gravity manipulation systems and ion drives, you can make a very impressive asteroid field indeed." The implications hit Zektar like a physical blow. For 3 years, while his intelligence networks had been tracking Marcus Chen's location and planning this operation, the human had been turning an entire asteroid field into a weapon, not just a weapon, but a fleet of weapons, each one disguised as natural space debris. "You're insane," Zektar said, his voice filled with genuine awe. "You've turned an entire star system into a trap." "I've turned an entire star system into a fortress," Marcus corrected. "And you, my old friend, have just brought your entire fleet into the most heavily defended space in the Outer Rim territories." The asteroid field was now close enough that individual mining platforms were visible on the Corvani sensors, their true nature finally revealed as the weapons systems hidden within them came online. But by then it was too late to retreat. The human vessels had positioned themselves in a perfect envelopment formation, using the Corvani fleet's own numbers against them. Zektar stared at the tactical displays, watching his overwhelming advantage evaporate as Marcus Chen once again demonstrated why he was considered the most dangerous human in the galaxy. "You planned all of this," Zektar said, his voice hollow with the realization of how completely he had been outmaneuvered. "Every move, every position, every response. You knew I would come for you." "I hoped you would," Marcus replied simply. "Because this time, Zektar, I'm not just trying to save a few thousand civilians. This time, I'm sending a message to every power in the galaxy that thinks humans are easy prey." Battle was about to begin in earnest, and Fleet Commander Zektar realized with growing horror that he had no idea how to fight an enemy who had turned an entire star system into his personal weapon. The battle erupted across the star system with a violence that turned space itself into a canvas of destruction and light. From his position on Vesta 7, Marcus Chen watched the tactical displays with the calm attention of someone conducting an orchestra, his hands moving across control panels as he coordinated the movements of hundreds of assets spread across millions of cubic kilometers of space. "Wraith Squadron, begin your approach on the Corvani left flank," he commanded into his communications array. "Remember, you're not trying to destroy their ships. You're trying to push them towards Sector 7. The modified mining vessels responded with military precision, their fusion-enhanced asteroid breakers carving brilliant lines of destruction through space as they engaged the alien battlecruisers. But instead of pressing their attacks, they began a carefully orchestrated withdrawal, drawing the Corvani ships deeper into the asteroid field. Fleet Commander Zektar, watching from the bridge of his flagship, felt the familiar sting of recognition. This was exactly the kind of tactical manipulation that Marcus Chen had used at Kepler 442, using the enemy's own aggression against them. "All ships, maintain formation," Zektar commanded. "Do not pursue the human vessels. They're trying to separate us." But even as he gave the order, he could see that it was too late. The human force wasn't fighting like desperate refugees defending their homes. They were fighting like a coordinated military unit, executing a complex battle plan, and that plan was already well underway. Tommy Rodriguez stood beside Marcus in the command center, his eyes wide with awe as he watched the battle unfold. "How are we doing this? Our civilian ships fighting battlecruisers and winning." "We're not winning yet," Marcus replied, his attention focused on a particular section of the tactical display. "But we're not trying to win through superior firepower. We're trying to win through superior positioning." Add the chapter from "We Get to Capture Coffee." Phantom Wing Status Report Ghost Leader. This is Phantom 2. We've successfully planted mining charges on 17 Corvani vessels. Charges are armed and ready for remote detonation." Marcus smiled grimly. While the main battle had been drawing the aliens' attention, smaller human vessels had been using the chaos to get close enough to the enemy ships to plant enhanced fusion charges directly on their hulls. It was an incredibly dangerous maneuver that required perfect timing and nerves of steel, but it was exactly the kind of unconventional tactic that the Corvani military wasn't prepared to handle. "Excellent work! Hold position and wait for my signal." Dr. Okafor's voice crackled through the intercom from the observation deck. "Marcus, the Corvani fleet is starting to adapt. They're pulling back from the asteroid field and trying to reform their battle line." "I can see that," Marcus replied, studying the tactical display as Zektar began implementing countermeasures. "But they're making the same mistake they made 12 years ago. They're thinking like a conventional military force." He activated his personal communication channel to the Corvani flagship. "Hello again, Zektar. How are you enjoying the battle so far?" The alien commander's face appeared on the screen, his chitinous features twisted with rage and frustration. "You cannot keep this up forever, Marcus Chen. You're burning through your resources while mine remain largely intact. This is a war of attrition you cannot win." "Is it?" Marcus asked mildly. "Tell me, how many of your ships have taken damage so far?" Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously as he consulted his tactical displays. 37 vessels have reported various degrees of damage, but nothing that significantly impairs their combat effectiveness. "And how many of those damaged ships do you think are currently carrying fusion charges planted by my people?" His tactical officer immediately began running sensor sweeps of the damaged vessels, and what they found made the fleet commander's blood run cold. "Sir, we're detecting unknown energy signatures on 43 of our ships. The signatures are consistent with human fusion technology." 43 ships? Zektar turned back to the communication screen, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "You're bluffing. There's no way your people could have gotten that close to that many of our vessels." Marcus shrugged casually. "Would you like to find out? I can detonate one of the charges as a demonstration." "You're lying! Phantom 2! Detonate Charge 7!" One of the Corvani battlecruisers, positioned near the rear of the alien formation, suddenly bloomed into a brilliant flower of destruction as the fusion charge planted on its hull exploded with devastating effect. The ship didn't just take damage, it was completely vaporized, along with its crew of 3,000 Corvani warriors. The shock wave from the explosion rippled through the alien fleet, and suddenly every ship commander was wondering if they too were carrying a hidden death sentence welded to their hull. "That was just one charge," Marcus said conversationally. "Would you like me to demonstrate what 42 simultaneous detonations would look like?" Zektar stared at the tactical display, watching the expanding debris field where one of his battlecruisers had existed just seconds before. The human was right. In a war of attrition, the side that could eliminate enemy assets without warning held an insurmountable advantage. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to listen," Marcus replied. "Really listen, the way you should have listened 12 years ago." He activated another set of controls, and suddenly the tactical display expanded to show not just the immediate battle zone, but the entire Outer Rim territories. What Zektar saw there made him understand just how completely he had been outmaneuvered. The Outer Rim was full of human assets. Not just ships, but entire communities, mining operations, research stations, and trade networks. Thousands of humans who had left the core worlds for various reasons, all of them connected by a communication and supply network that stretched across dozens of star systems. "You see," Marcus continued, "you weren't just hunting one human, Zektar. You were hunting someone who spent 12 years building relationships with every human in the Outer Rim territories. Someone who understood that the real strength of our species isn't our military might or our advanced technology. Then what is it?" Zektar asked, genuinely curious despite the tactical situation. "Our ability to work together when we need to. Our willingness to help each other when the odds are stacked against us." our refusal to abandon our own, even when it would be easier to walk away. Marcus gestured toward the tactical display, where human vessels from across the system were still arriving to join the battle. Every person fighting for me today is someone who needed help at some point in the past 12 years. Someone who was running from something or looking for something, or just trying to survive in the Outer Rim territories. I helped them, and now they're helping me. This is all very touching, Zektar said sarcastically, but it doesn't change the tactical situation. You still can't defeat 500 battlecruisers with a handful of modified civilian vessels. Marcus's smile was the smile of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. You're right. But I'm not trying to defeat 500 battlecruisers. I'm trying to defeat one fleet commander who thinks that superior numbers automatically means superior strategy. With Trust Teddy, he activated another communication channel. All Spectre units, initiate Phase 3. Throughout the system, human vessels that had been fighting defensively suddenly shifted to coordinated offensive operations. But instead of attacking the Corvani ships directly, they began targeting something else entirely. The sensor networks. Every military force depends on accurate information to coordinate their operations, and the Corvani fleet was no exception. They had deployed hundreds of sensor drones and monitoring satellites throughout the system to track human movements and coordinate their attacks. Now, those sensors were being systematically destroyed by precision strikes from human vessels. What are you doing? Zektar demanded as his tactical displays began showing more and more blank spots where his sensor coverage was being eliminated. I'm leveling the playing field, Marcus replied. You brought 500 ships because you wanted overwhelming superiority, but superiority is only an advantage if you can coordinate it effectively. As the sensor network died, the Corvani fleet began to lose its ability to function as a unified force. Individual ship commanders found themselves operating with incomplete information, unable to see the full tactical picture or coordinate their actions with nearby vessels. This is still just a delaying action, Zektar insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Even without sensors, we still outnumber you. That's true, Marcus agreed. But numbers don't matter if you can't bring them to bear effectively, and you can't bring them to bear effectively if you don't know where your targets are. He activated yet another system, and suddenly the space around the Corvani fleet filled with false sensor readings. Holographic projectors hidden throughout the asteroid field began generating phantom images of human ships, making it impossible for the aliens to distinguish between real targets and illusions. You see, Zektar, the thing about fighting in the Outer Rim territories is that out here, we don't have massive military budgets or advanced weapons factories. What we have is ingenuity, determination, and a lot of mining equipment that can be used in very creative ways. The holographic phantoms were coordinating with the real human vessels, creating the illusion of a force 3 times larger than it actually was. Corvani weapons fire was being wasted on targets that didn't exist, while the real human ships used the confusion to position themselves for maximum tactical advantage. Elena's voice crackled through the intercom. Marcus, we're receiving a priority communication from the edge of the system. It's a human military vessel. Marcus paused in his coordination of the battle, genuine surprise crossing his features. Patch it through. The communication screen split, showing both Zektar's frustrated face and the bridge of a sleek human destroyer. The captain was a woman in her 40s, wearing the uniform of the Human Defense Force, with the rank insignia of a full admiral. Marcus Chen, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. Admiral Sarah Voss, commanding the 4th Reconnaissance Division. We've been monitoring your situation. Admiral, Marcus replied carefully. I wasn't aware that HDF forces were operating in this sector. We weren't, until we detected the Corvani fleet movement. 500 battlecruisers crossing into human territory tends to get our attention. Zektar's eyes widened as he realized the implications. This is neutral space. The hegemony has every right to conduct operations here. Actually, Admiral Voss said calmly, you don't. The Outer Rim Accords of 2387 clearly state that any military operation involving more than 50 vessels in this region requires prior notification to all affected parties. You brought 10 times that number without telling anyone. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction as he realized what was happening. The Human Defense Force wasn't here to rescue him. They were here to make sure that what happened today became an official incident, with witnesses and documentation that would prevent the Corvani from claiming it was just a routine anti-piracy operation. "Admiral," he said formally, "I request that you maintain your current position and observe. This is a private matter between myself and Fleet Commander Zektar." Admiral Voss smiled slightly. "Understood. We'll just be here, watching, making sure everything is properly documented for the historical record." The implication was clear. Whatever happened in this battle would become part of the official record, witnessed by Human Defense Force officers and transmitted back to the core worlds. Zektar's private war of revenge had just become a very public diplomatic incident, and Marcus Chen had just gained the audience he needed to send his message to the rest of the galaxy. The endgame began with a single word transmitted across all frequencies. "Now." Marcus Chen spoke quietly into his communication array. But that single word triggered a sequence of events that had been 12 years in the making. Throughout the star system, hundreds of hidden assets activated simultaneously, revealing the true scope of what the ghost of Kepler, before two, had built in his years of exile. The asteroid field in Sector 12 erupted into coordinated movement as every piece of space debris revealed itself to be a carefully disguised weapons platform. Mining charges that had been strategically positioned for years began detonating in sequence, creating a cascade of explosions that turned the entire field into a kinetic weapon of unprecedented scale. Fleet Commander Zektar watched in horror as his tactical displays showed the impossible. The asteroids weren't just moving, they were accelerating toward his fleet with the precision of guided missiles. Each one had been fitted with ion drives and guidance systems, turning natural space debris into self-directing projectiles capable of devastating his battlecruisers. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he commanded. But even as the order went out, he knew it was too late. His fleet was trapped between the accelerating asteroid field and the human vessels that had been herding them into position for the past hour. "This is impossible," Vexstar whispered from the tactical station. "No one has ever weaponized an entire asteroid field before. The coordination required, the resources, the planning. Marcus Chen has had 12 years to plan," Zektar replied grimly, "and we just gave him the perfect target to plan against." On Vesta 7, Marcus watched the culmination of his preparations with the satisfaction of someone watching a complex equation solve itself. Every variable had been accounted for, every contingency prepared for, every possible response anticipated and countered. "Tommy," he said to the young man standing beside him, "I want you to remember what you're seeing here. Not the battle, not the explosions, not the tactical maneuvering. Remember the principle behind it." Tommy stared at the tactical display, where hundreds of Corvani battlecruisers were desperately trying to avoid the asteroid barrage while fighting off attacks from Marcus's hidden fleet. What principle? Never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose, but more importantly, never underestimate someone who has spent years building something worth fighting for. The first asteroids began impacting Corvani ships, their massive bulk enhanced by the kinetic energy imparted by the ion drives. Each impact was devastating, tearing through alien armor like paper and sending battlecruisers spinning into the void. But the real destruction came from what happened next. The mining charges that Marcus had placed throughout the asteroid field weren't ordinary explosives. They were chronon-enhanced fusion devices, designed to destabilize the temporal fields that the asteroids had been accumulating for millions of years. When they detonated, they didn't just create explosions, they created localized distortions in space-time itself. Dr. Okafor's voice echoed through the command center, filled with awe and scientific fascination. "Marcus, the chronon cascade is exceeding all theoretical projections. The The temporal distortions are creating a feedback loop that's amplifying the destructive effects exponentially. I know, Marcus replied calmly. I've been calculating those effects for 3 years. The space around the Corvani fleet became a maelstrom of twisted physics, where cause and effect became fluid concepts and the normal laws of reality bent under the weight of temporal distortion. Ships that were destroyed in the explosion sometimes flickered back into existence for brief moments before being destroyed again, creating a nightmarish loop of death and rebirth. Admiral Voss, watching from the edge of the system, activated her communication array with obvious reluctance. Marcus, I need to ask you to stop. The temporal distortions you're creating are going to be visible from halfway across the galaxy. With Trust Teddy, every major power is going to know what happened here. That's the point, Marcus replied. I want them to know. He activated his personal communication channel to the Corvani flagship, which was somehow still intact despite the chaos engulfing the rest of the fleet. Zektar's face appeared on the screen, his chitinous features marked by shock and the beginning of understanding. You're not just fighting me, Zektar said, his voice hollow with realization. This was never about revenge or personal vendettas. You're making a statement. I'm making a promise, Marcus corrected. To every power in the galaxy that thinks humans are weak, divided, or easy to intimidate, to every species that believes they can hunt us down one by one without consequences, to every alien military commander who thinks that superior numbers automatically mean victory. Around them, the battle was winding down as the last of the Corvani vessels either fled the system or were destroyed by the ongoing asteroid bombardment. Of the 500 battlecruisers that had entered the system, fewer than 50 remained combat effective, and most of those were already broadcasting surrender signals. You've destroyed my fleet, Zektar said, his voice carrying a mixture of respect and defeat. 500 of the hegemony's most advanced warships reduced to scrap metal and debris. Do you have any idea what this will mean for galactic politics? I have a very good idea, Marcus replied. It means that the next time someone wants to hunt down a human, they're going to have to think very carefully about whether they're prepared for the consequences. He gestured toward the tactical display where the surviving human vessels were beginning to coordinate search and rescue operations for Corvani survivors. Despite the overwhelming destruction, Marcus's people were already working to save as many alien lives as possible. You see, Zektar, the difference between us isn't just tactical ability or technological innovation. The difference is that I understand something about human nature that you never grasped. We don't fight because we enjoy destruction. We fight because we believe in protecting the things that matter to us. Elena's voice crackled through the intercom. Marcus, we're receiving communication requests from vessels throughout the Outer Rim territories. Word is spreading about what happened here and beyond the Outer Rim, Admiral Voss added from her position at the system's edge. We're detecting high-priority communications traffic from every major government in the galaxy. Everyone wants to know how one human turned a star system into a weapon. Marcus smiled, but it was the tired smile of someone who had finally completed a task that had consumed years of his life. Tell them the truth. Tell them that Marcus Chen, former tactical officer of the Human Defense Force, spent 12 years building something that the galaxy's military strategists thought was impossible. What did you build? Zektar asked, genuinely curious despite his defeat. A community, Marcus replied simply. A network of people who were willing to trust each other, help each other, and fight for each other when the time came. Every human in this system had their own reasons for being here, their own problems to solve, their own battles to fight, but when someone threatened one of us, we all responded. He paused, looking at the tactical display where human vessels from across the system were still arriving to help with rescue operations and system cleanup. Miners, traders, researchers, refugees, outcasts, and dreamers, all of them working together with the coordination of a military unit but the purpose of a family. The galaxy's military powers understand fleets and armies and weapons of mass destruction. Marcus continued, what they don't understand is the power of a community that refuses to abandon its own. That's what you really fought today, Zektar. Not one human with a hidden weapons cache, but 300 humans who were willing to risk everything for each other. Tommy Rodriguez stared at the communications board, watching messages flood in from humans throughout the Outer Rim territories. Reports of alien military forces reconsidering their operations, of pirates deciding to find easier targets, of entire species reevaluating their assumptions about human capabilities. "It's working," he said in amazement. "The message is spreading. Everyone is talking about what happened here." "Good," Marcus said, but his voice carried the weight of exhaustion. Because this was never about winning one battle. This was about making sure we never have to fight this kind of battle again. "Doctor!" Okafor's voice came through the intercom, filled with scientific excitement. "Marcus, the chronon distortions are stabilizing, but they're going to leave permanent changes in local space-time. This system is going to be a landmark for centuries to come. Future historians will be able to study the temporal echoes of this battle for generations." "Perfect," Marcus replied. "Let them study. Let them learn. Let them understand that humans are not prey animals to be hunted at will." F Fleet Commander Zektar sat in the ruins of his flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of his career and his dreams of revenge. But as he watched the human rescue vessels working to save his surviving crew members, he began to understand something that 12 years of hatred had prevented him from seeing. "You could have killed us all," he said quietly. "Your weapons, your planning, your tactical position. You had the power to completely annihilate my fleet with no survivors." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "I could have, but you didn't. Even after everything I've done, even after I hunted you down and threatened the people under your protection, you're saving my people." Marcus looked directly at the alien commander, and for the first time in their long conflict there was no anger in his eyes. Only a deep, weary sadness. "Zektar, the reason I stopped you at Kepler 442 wasn't because I hated the Corvani. It was because I believe that every life has value, regardless of species. That principle doesn't change just because you made this personal." The implications of those words hit Zektar like a physical blow. For 12 years he had assumed that Marcus Chen was his enemy, someone who had destroyed his career out of human arrogance and military ambition. Only now did he understand that the human had been trying to save lives, including Corvani lives, by preventing a massacre. "I have been wrong," Zektar said finally, his voice carrying the weight of years of misdirected hatred. "About you, about humans, about everything." "It's not too late to learn," Marcus replied gently. "The galaxy is full of species that could benefit from cooperation instead of conflict. The question is whether we're wise enough to choose that path." Admiral Voss's voice cut through the conversation, carrying the authority of someone delivering an official message. "Marcus Chen, by the authority granted to me by the Human Defense Force and the Colonial Administration, I am offering you the opportunity to return to active service with the rank of Admiral and command of your own task force. A return to official military service, a chance to implement his tactical innovations on a larger scale, an opportunity to shape humanity's defense policies for the next generation." "Thank you, Admiral," he said finally. "But I must respectfully decline. My place is here in the Outer Rim territories, with the people who have become my family." "I understand," Admiral Voss replied with obvious disappointment, "but the offer stands. If you ever change your mind, the Human Defense Force would be honored to have you." As the communication ended, Tommy looked at Marcus with obvious confusion. "You turned down an admiral's rank? A chance to command a real fleet instead of just mining ships and cargo haulers?" Marcus smiled, looking out at the tactical display where human vessels from across the system were working together to repair the damage and help the survivors. "Tommy, what do you think I've been commanding for the past 12 years?" The young man followed his gaze, seeing not just ships and equipment, but a community of people who had chosen to trust each other, help each other, and fight for each other when necessary. A community that had just proven to the entire galaxy that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The Hidden Champion, Tommy whispered, using the title that the galaxy's media would assign to Marcus Chen in the days to come. That's what they're going to call you, isn't it? Maybe, Marcus replied, but I prefer the title my people have been using all along. What's that? Marcus Chen, the ghost of Kepler. 442, the man who had just redefined the balance of power in the Outer Rim territories, smiled as he watched his community begin the process of rebuilding and moving forward. Friend, the battle was over. The message had been sent. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, other species were learning a lesson that the Corvani hegemony would never forget. Humans were at their most dangerous when they were cornered and had nothing left to lose. But they were absolutely terrifying when they had something worth fighting for. The Hidden Champion saga had ended, but the legend of what happened in an unnamed star system on the edge of human space would continue for generations. A reminder that the greatest weapon in the galaxy wasn't a battleship or a planet killer or a temporal distortion device. It was the simple human refusal to abandon their own.